DTFF.
Once again, here is Drinking and Talking Fantasy Football with your hosts, Dustin Lunt and Jake Trowbridge.
Good evening, everyone. Happy Tuesday. We are back. DTF is here covering all of the continued free agency bonanza tonight. If you missed our first part of the episode or of the free agency tour here, after you're done listening to this one, go back and listen to it. It's got all the big name signings and the big moves leading up to free agency. This one is kind of that second wave of
there's some big
here.
names in this wave.
There are.
Sir, how dare you?
Not quite like that first wave of free agency, though.
I can't believe you would talk about Justice Hill and Matt Collins that way, by the way.
I know. Just, well, it is what it is. I said what I said. I'm not taking it back. Before we get into it, though, Jake, how are you doing this evening?
Man, it's like 55 degrees, or it was 55 degrees in Wisconsin at some point today. Ergo, I'm doing fantastic by default. How are you?
Yeah, it was glorious today. Got a little bit of that vitamin D going on when you step outside, which is nice. Rejuvenates the soul. And let's be honest, this has been kind of a cold spring for us here in Wisconsin. So it was nice to actually have a warm feeling day for once.
Yeah, it's warmed my body. It's warmed my soul. It's warmed some of my fantasy football related takes, I think, as well. I'm feeling a little bit more optimistic about some of this stuff. And I think it's a byproduct of the weather. So we'll see if I stand by it once it gets cold again.
Yes, we shall see. Hopefully it doesn't get too cold. It's supposed to snow on Saturday here, but a little bit, just a wee bit. Hopefully not. Anyway, people don't want to hear about that. They want to hear all about what we're drinking tonight. And Jake, you provided this beer, so why don't you tell me the little that you know about this one?
Yeah, I have honestly no idea what we're really drinking tonight. I asked the missus, she brings home these, like they call them low fills from Delta Beer Lab, where she works. And
just for the record, mine is like filled right to the brim.
Yeah, that's
like,
almost always the case too.
There's nothing low about this one at all.
No, I think they're just like, well, somebody else can drink these this time. So on the bottom, here's what it says. It had the words root beer written on it, and then it crossed that out, and then it said rye on it. I literally have no idea what is in this, but I smelled it, Dustin, and it smells like root beer.
Exactly like root beer. So are we drinking a non-alcoholic?
We might be drinking just an NA root beer. I poured it because I wanted to see, and it's so murky, by the way. It does not look like beer. It didn't foam at all when I poured it out.
Yeah, there's like very minimal carbonation at all in it. I mean, it tastes like root beer.
Yeah, I think it's just root beer, which is why, Dustin, I'm so glad, and I hope you brought yours with you. I brought a backup beer because I had no idea if this was going to be good or even a beer. And so,
okay, let's with this root beer, it tastes fine. Yeah. It's a root beer.
Yeah, it's fine.
There's nothing wrong with it.
But it doesn't have a lot of carbonation. That's my beef with it.
Yeah, very flat,
little watery,
and it's no A&W root beer. Let's be honest.
No,
and folks,
I wouldn't even say it's
outside the Midwest, because I feel like A&W is a very Midwest chain. A&W root beer is the number one of root beers, in my opinion. Correct. It is that good. And if you ever get a chance to try some, just pull up to the drive-thru, grab some, or if you see it at the store, buy it. It's going to be worth it.
It's fantastic.
Better right from the store, though.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially if you can get it like a root beer float. Look, now I'm just telling
that's
you
the bomb. Oh.
Yeah. Now I'm just telling you things that you should already know in general.
But going back to my childhood, I love it.
It's not great. It's not great. That root beer, like,
it's not
if
great,
it was
but
a
it's
really
not bad.
Good, I don't know. I don't like. There's a kind of an astringent taste to it that I'm not a fan of. And again, it's just like, it's weak. It's kind of watery. So Delta, love your beers, but I'm not a fan of this particular root beer. Maybe it went through I don't know. Maybe it's just a castaway for a reason. I don't want this to be an indictment of all of their root beer. Maybe it's actually better on the tap.
I don't know.
But this one, not for me. So I brought it back. If
only we had vanilla ice cream to go with it, we could have root beer floats on the show.
I'm sorry, I can't provide everything, Dustin. Jeez. I'm gonna run to my freezer. Hold on, we're gonna put the whole podcast on pause for a minute. No, I brought a backup beer though. It's the Capital Brewery Maibach. We were actually talking about this over the weekend. Just Maibachs in general. They're nice. They're nice and light, but a little sweet. You know, they got a little.
It's
honey,
that
maybe.
It's that beer that you use as you're going from deep winter, getting away from those stouts and porters into the spring. Something a little bit lighter. It's still got a good amount of body to it before you hit those nice summer lawnmower beers.
Yeah, that's a great way of framing that. And so we are in the perfect drinking weather for a Maibach right now. So,
and this is a very good beer as well.
Yeah, in terms of
the
a
Capital
backup.
Maibach.
Couldn't go much worse for a backup beer. So that's what we're drinking overall now as we've pivoted. I am drinking one other thing tonight because Dustin and listeners, if you remember a couple of episodes ago, we had our season-long beer bet recap. And I have a few to pay off. I paid off one at the time. I paid off that Dawson Knox was not a top 8 tight end, which I said he would be. I am paying off a second one because I want to clear my ledger as fast as possible. So after today, I will have 2 more to pay off. But I said Mike Evans would be a top 5 wide receiver in points per game with a minimum of 10 games played this past season. Obviously, that didn't happen. It didn't come close to happening. He was outside the top 15. And so I must pay this off. And I'm doing so with this fun little guy. It's 99 Peppermint. It's like a brand, I guess. 99 is a brand. It means it's 99 proof. So this will be interesting and much more potent than the typical peppermint schnapps.
Yes, very much so.
But I do love peppermint, even though I don't love paying these off to you. But Dustin, you are an amazing fantasy football prognosticator / genius. Cheers.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, that's real pepperminty. That's strong as shit, too. Wow.
Maybe you should have put it in your root beer and mix it in there. No,
I'll pass.
Not so much.
I'll pass on that combination, that flavor profile. I did want to ask Dustin about Mike Evans. Speaking of him, while we're on the topic, I was being a degenerate this weekend. You know this, but I did a couple of best ball drafts already. I know it's March. Stupid. We haven't even gotten out of free agency, into the draft, any of that. But I wanted to throw it out there. I figured it's random enough at this point in time that I could actually win the whole damn thing. But as I was going through and checking the ADPs, which are all crazy right now, Mike Evans stood out to me because he is currently going, this is as of like yesterday, he is going as the wide receiver 34 in best ball.
That is ridiculous.
I understand Tom Brady retired, but holy crap. Is that absurdly low to you as well?
It is. And I think the reason for that, other than him not having a quarterback that's going to throw him the ball right now, unless you count Kyle Trask, it's the fact that he's 29, going to be 30 this year, I think.
Sure.
And so he's hitting the age cliff that people love to talk about with wide receivers. And it's like, dude, he is not the guy that is the speedster. He was never that speedster that he's going to lose his speed. He was always the big body guy that would go high point a ball, big target for the end zone. And he's going to continue to do that. Like nothing's going to change. He's a quarterback's great friend because he's got that little big wingspan. And like I said, he can high point the ball. So if the ball is up in the air above his head, he's going to come down with it. Like that's what he does. So I think wide receiver 34 is ridiculous. Do we expect him to be top 15? Maybe not. Maybe. But I mean, but he'll be a solid wide receiver too. In that wide receiver 3 category, I think is just criminal and a screaming value.
Yeah, I figured there will be enough 50-50 balls thrown his way regardless, and hopefully enough touchdowns to make that a pretty smash move. So I did. I smashed that, and we'll see. We're going to talk about some additions later on, actually, that kind of surround Mike Evans with our free agency recap. But before we do, we get to come back with our favorite chunk of the show because we have
Yes.
something for it.
Finally. Thank you, people.
Drunk, hammered drunk.
Drunk trade of the week.
This week's drunk trade comes to us from Reddit. Hello again, Reddit. From Representative Rock 94 on Reddit, to be exact. Are they supposing that they're representing all of rock? Is that what they're suggesting with this? Are we talking to rock?
I was thinking it was The Rock, and it's Representative Rock, like he's going to Congress. And 94,
in 2094?
And 94 was when he made his wrestling debut, maybe? I don't know.
You honestly could be correct with that. I don't know. We're not going to fact check it.
I
we
think
don't
it
need
sounds
to Google
good.
that. Regardless, this is a redraft league. So this was from previous season, obviously. They say, at the time, it made sense to me, but I traded Cordero Patterson for Rashad Bateman before the season started. I needed wide receiver depth, but I was tipsy when I made it. It's a whole bag of interesting here. So I have two questions for you. I mean, the trade itself, we know how that shook out. Rashad Bateman only played like 5 games, had one really great game, one okay game, and then 3 nothing games, and then was out basically. Cordero Patterson had some usable games. Wasn't great, but he was there. I don't care about that. Here's what I want to know. How often do you draft your redraft team and then make a trade before week 1 starts? Have you ever done that?
Never.
Do you feel like I feel? This is what I really wanted to get into. When I draft that team, I am so stubborn and stupid about it. There's nothing that's going to change. I mean, it helps that we draft like right before the season starts, like the weekend before every single year in our home league. But there's nothing that's going to pry those guys out of my hands. I drafted them. They're my babies. I have the utmost belief in them at that point. Is there anything that would get you to do it? Like if somebody, I guess, sent you an incredible value,
well,
quote unquote.
At that point, yes. But typically going into redraft, I typically love my roster, or maybe not love, but I'm content with where it's at going into the season, saying I drafted these guys for a reason. I have no reason to trade them away unless I really was like, typical to the show, drunk at the draft and really made some bad moves. Then maybe I would try to make some trades. But typically I don't drink a whole lot at the draft. Don't drink and draft, people. You have your faculties about you. But if I got a decent offer before the season started, sure, I'd consider it, make a trade, but I'm not actively going out to try to make a trade prior to the season starting.
You're not the one sending the offers. If you receive one, so be it. You can review it and assess, but you're never sending the offers. And that's how I feel. And I also wonder, when we get to this level of a player, these are guys that were at least drafted beyond, I'd say around 7 probably and beyond. Cordero Patterson, I would assume much later than that. So the value here is interesting. But we're talking about wide receiver depth. And just going, oh man, I don't know. I guess I glossed over too many wide receivers in the draft. So I'm going to go ahead and try to get, let's say, a wide receiver 4 that I feel comfortable with. I don't even do that because I think I'm so smart that waivers are going to do it for me regardless. And so I still won't make a trade. That's how stupid and stubborn I get with this. It was a bad trade in retrospect because, Rashad Bateman got injured. It's really all you can say about this particular trade, though. But I was just more interested in the pre-draft trading aspect.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I mean, the trade itself, whatever. I mean, it was not egregious by any means.
Yeah.
I can understand how you would want to make that trade if you're a Bateman truther,
Which I
as you
am.
are, Jake. So,
Yep.
I mean, that seems like a trade you would make, or you would have made
Correct.
going into last season. I think, because it was a overall fair trade. I mean, we expected Bateman to do a lot more than he did, as you said, and
Mhm.
Cordero Patterson coming off that huge season last year. I don't think any of us expected him to necessarily repeat exactly what he did. So I get the trade. Not bad
Yeah, I
at
think it
all.
looked great actually at the
Yeah.
time. I would have been
Mm-hmm.
psyched with that trade at the time. And
Mm-hmm.
shit happens. People get injured, so really not more that you can do about that one.
Mm-hmm.
So, dare we move into phase 2, part 2 of free agency, where you said there wasn't a lot of big names, but there's some big names,
There's
some key
some.
pieces in here that
No,
I'm really excited about.
no, there are. I was maybe just being a little overly dramatic for the opening of the show. Way to call me out, Jake. God,
Uh, always got to try to get people up front to stay tuned for the rest
that's
of the
right.
show. I don't think we need to do that though for this episode because again, there's a lot of interesting players here. So let's start with some interesting chunks of
Mm-hmm.
players.
All right.
So the Patriots. I don't know, Patriots. I don't know exactly what you're doing. They moved Jacoby Myers. He is now with the Raiders. They replaced him essentially with Juju Smith-Schuster. A little bit different contract. They also added Mike Gesicki because they moved Jonnu Smith, who went to the Falcons,
Mm-hmm.
and they added James Robinson to that backfield because they lost Damian Harris, who we're going to talk about a little bit later here. So Juju, Mike Gesicki, James Robinson, one for everybody. Everybody gets one, except probably the position they really need, which is quarterback. So Mac Jones, I guess, is still there to
Safe
deal
for
with these
another
guys.
year.
Yeah. So what do you make of this trio here?
Juju, I mean, I think that's a good move for them. Obviously, losing Jacoby Myers, Juju had a better season than him. He scores more touchdowns than Jacoby, as much as I love Jacoby Myers. So I think that's a good move for them. They needed an established wide receiver. So I like that move. Mike Gesicki, he replaces Jonnu Smith. He can basically play as a wide receiver. He can play that move tight end position. So it's just another big bodied receiving option for them, which they desperately need. And then James Robinson, I guess just a backup move because they need the depth. It'll be interesting to see how that backfield plays out. I think when we saw Damian Harris leave, it was one of those situations where it's like, ooh, Ramondre Stevenson wheels up especially after the season he had last year.
Mhm.
And maybe this is just a depth move and wanted a capable backup in case Stevenson gets dinged up or something. So I don't know. I mean, James Robinson has been a very good back, so I don't know how to feel about that one. And hard to say with Belichick what he's going to do with this backfield and how it's going to play out.
Yeah, I think it was a little foolish of us to get our hopes up for Ramondre Stevenson with the Harris thing because it's Bill Belichick, it's the Patriots. There's always going to be a plethora of bodies in the backfield. I mean, people might have had their hopes up for Pierre Strong, who was a rookie that they drafted last year that they really wanted, or I forget the other rookie's name, honestly, because he was such a non-factor at this past year. But there's a couple of those guys where people were probably hoping, damn it, I have them in Dynasty. Please just stay pat. And now James Robinson comes in. James Robinson, you said it, he's been very good. He's another year removed from his injury, which, based on the trajectory of other running backs, it actually seems like this would be a year for him to re-break out. It's not the worst spot, and he should still go late enough because Ramondre is a hot ticket. So maybe he's a value.
Yeah, I think if he falls far enough in drafts, he's a good pickup. It'll be interesting to see where ADP lands come redraft season. Maybe if he ends up having like a good camp or good training camp, flashes in the preseason, I could see his ADP getting bumped up a bit into that kind of area where you don't want to be drafting him, especially with Stevenson there. It's just, if he falls, yeah, I'll take him because he does have the upside if he were to get that, kind of bulk of the carries role if something were to happen to Stevenson.
Yeah, he's a great handcuff. Mostly there's always a great handcuff in the New England backfield or a great pass catcher, and there's one or the other. It seems like ever since James White left, it's usually the other. So, yeah, I'm okay with James Robinson. Mike Gesicki, I've never liked Mike Gesicki. You know my thoughts and rules on Mike Gesicki.
And tight ends in general.
It's I'm the worst person to judge this, but I'm going to judge it so hard anyways. Hunter Henry, I still maintain he's the traditional tight end on the team. If people are looking for a lot of touchdowns, I still think it's Hunter Henry. Mike Gesicki, like you said. I think it depends on who else they add to the wide receiver room, how much Mike Gesicki is really involved. We'll have to see. Because right now it's Juju Smith-Schuster, like Kendrick Bourne is the number 2. Nelson Aguilar is even a free agent. I guess Devonta, God damn it. Another former Dolphin, Devontae Parker. Sorry, that's who I was thinking of. He's still there too. He's their big-bodied guy. I don't know. I don't like a lot of this. This is just grossness to me. Let's move on to more grossness so we can get out of the grossness then. The Panthers. Here's a trio that people were excited about, I guess. I don't know why, but they added Miles Sanders, Hayden Hurst, and Adam Thielen. They had to add people. They didn't have people on the team. So this was a requirement.
They literally had no running backs and no wide receivers.
It was Terrace Marshall, Laviska Shenault, Shai Smith, I understand, is a player that is still on that roster. That was it. So no tight ends that were of any relevance, certainly for fantasy. Let's start with tight end. Hayden Hurst was the first kind of domino here. Anything?
No. I mean,
because of the team or because of him? Or both?
Because of the team. He's always been a solid, real NFL, good tight end. Never great for fantasy.
Yeah, even with the Bengals and what people maintain is a great spot for tight ends.
Exactly.
I'm not so sure. He didn't really do much. So I'm out on him. I'm cautiously optimistic about Adam Thielen.
Yes.
We'll just have to see. It was a 3-year contract. I know he's like 32 years old now, and that's pretty wild to get a 3-year contract. I'm assuming it can void, after a year or two. But
yeah,
anything with him?
I like it for fantasy purposes as maybe like your 4th or 5th wide receiver. I think his value is going to be pretty depressed, but they don't really have anyone else to throw to on the team right now. And he is a good veteran route running wide receiver. He knows how to get into the open spaces and coverages, and he's going to get peppered with targets. So for PPR leagues, he's going to be a great value later in drafts. Should be a solid, at minimum, wide receiver 3. Maybe even sneak into that low end wide receiver 2 category this upcoming season.
That really heartens me to hear you say that, because I was touting Adam Thielen as a potential top 15 guy last year with the Vikings. Obviously, that didn't pan out at all. Volume based, I could get it. Don't look for a lot of yards from Adam.
Right.
Thielen. That's not going to be the case. So standard leagues, if you play in those, don't. But if you do, then I wouldn't be interested in him at all.
Yeah, I could see him having lines like 8 catches for like 86 yards.
I think that would be a generous one. Honestly.
It's going to be, like you said, peppered with targets. So you're going to get the points for that. And then, any yardage after that is just kind of bonus. So I think we're on the same page there.
Yeah, probably not a lot of touchdowns to be had in this offense, which is why Miles Sanders, he's going to have to do it all himself if he wants to get those touchdowns. The offensive line, I guess, is pretty decent from what folks have told me, at least. I haven't really studied them in depth. So maybe, and there's nobody else there, right? That's really a threat to him in the backfield.
And they're going to want to run the ball because they're going in with Sam Howell right now. So they're going to want to take that pressure off the quarterback. Not Sam Howell.
Isn't Howell, I was going to say, isn't Howell Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
My
and
bad. Wrong rookie quarterback.
well, they're going in with them for now because
Right.
they do have the number 1 overall pick for right now, which they say they are going to move back from again. They
Right.
just traded with Chicago to get it. Now they want to trade back. I don't know what the hell they're doing with their quarterback, but to your point, it could be anybody. It could even be a boat. And that new person, if it's a developmental person, like not the top 2 quarterbacks,
Mhm.
now you're going to have to
Regardless,
run him.
it's going to be a quarterback that has zero experience in the NFL, and they're going to want to rely on that run game to take some of that pressure off. So
Yeah.
Miles Sanders will get a ton of runs. He may not get a lot of catches, though. I mean, I guess that's kind of wait and see. Although with the Eagles this last year, it's not like he was peppered with targets either.
Right.
So it'll. I don't like it though overall. I mean, he's going to be pushed down my draft board, I think, a bit. He'll be kind of like a low end RB2 in my book.
Yeah. I think it all depends on what they do the first couple of weeks. We'll see. We'll have a real good idea of what his target share looks like, and that will determine literally everything. I think that there's room for him to have it. Like you said, he just didn't get the opportunity with Philadelphia because there wasn't a lot of checkdowns to be made. That wasn't
Right.
what Jalen Hurts did the last couple of years. So I don't know. I'll be willing to give him a shot if he is outside of the top 15 ADP, which I think he pretty surely will be.
I would make a beer bet on that. I would be so confident that he'd be outside the top 15 running backs.
Well, I'm not going to take the other side of that beer bet. I'm just going to go with it that he will absolutely be outside the top 15 and might be outside the top 15 by season-long finish as well. But I think he could be a consistent enough guy based on volume. So I don't know. Feel out your league mates in Dynasty to see if they're really worried about him or not. Let's move on to another running back. So interdivisional stuff here happening. The Lions.
I hate this move.
You couldn't get what you wanted for your guy DeAndre Swift to just have complete control of the backfield. They had to go and add David Montgomery, who's a free agent from the Bears. The Bears themselves have made some interesting moves that we'll talk about, but David Montgomery, DeAndre Swift. It's going to be an either or. I think that their ADPs will come up close to each other by the time the season starts. But do you have a sense of what will happen with this split?
This move tells me that it's going to be most likely Montgomery is going to be like the first and second down back, and then Swift will be the pass catching back because that's what he's better at.
He had 70 targets last year.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think this just means like they're gonna kind of lighten that workload for Swift, just based off of his kind of dings he gets and his injuries over the last few seasons, and keep him healthy to use him what he really excels at. He's not that necessarily between the tackles banger, where that's more of Montgomery's game.
Yeah, they brought in somebody else who can vulture the touchdowns away from DeAndre Swift, so you don't have to worry about him getting too many of those this year.
Hooray for my dynasty team.
What's a bummer with David Montgomery, and it makes sense, they paid him more than what Jamal Williams got paid on his way out, right? And we'll talk about Jamal Williams a little bit too. But David Montgomery got paid more, so it feels like if you follow the money, they should hypothetically use David Montgomery a little bit more. Like you said, take some more snaps away from DeAndre Swift. The thing is, I think his ADP is going to be super high. Jamal Williams, you always got it a value.
Right.
And obviously he got crazy amount of touchdowns, 17 touchdowns last year. David Montgomery probably not going to get 17 touchdowns. And now you're not going to get the draft value with him either.
He could. I mean, if he gets put in that Jamal Williams role where he just gets in at the goal line and vultures all those touchdowns, like
none of the receivers catch a touchdown.
He could have easily a double-digit touchdown season. Like that would not surprise me at all.
Double digits, I could see 10 touchdowns. I can see that. I still think it's the higher range of outcomes. 17 is just outrageous.
No, and I did not say 17. I said double digits. Don't put words into my mouth, Jake.
It's my favorite thing to do, though. Let's move on to the Bears since we're already talking about David Montgomery moving. They add Deonta Foreman and Travis Homer from the Seahawks. They also had Robert Tonyan and PJ Walker, who is just purely a backup quarterback, which is great, though. I love that as a backup move for Justin Fields in case he does get injured. It's kind of the Tyler Huntley backing up Lamar Jackson situation. So that's really nice. But the backfield, again, so David Montgomery leaves, goes signs with the Lions. People get super psyched for Khalil Herbert because if you've been holding on to him, you saw what he did last season. He looked awesome. He looked fucking awesome, but they still wouldn't just stick with him when Montgomery was healthy. So he's out of the way. Now they had Deonta Foreman from the Panthers and Travis Homer. I'm more worried about Deonta Foreman than Travis Homer. But are you worried about either, really?
Not really. Okay. I think this really does just signify that they believe in Herbert. Yeah, Foreman had a really good season last year with Carolina, but I don't know. It's for whatever reason, it just doesn't concern me. And Travis Homer, he's always been just kind of a role player, can never stay healthy. So I'm not worried about him at all. So I mean, I'm in on Herbert. I think he's going to be the real deal this next year.
I think this is going to be a situation where I take Deonta Foreman super late in drafts and see, because he also looked pretty great with the Panthers and Spurs. He really did. And was it the year before they was with the Titans, I believe? And I also thought he looked really good when he had to step in for Derrick Henry in a brief spot. So like, I do think he's a really good running back. I also think Khalil Herbert is a really dynamite running back. I think the value is going to be super different though. So I'll probably lean into Foreman. I'll probably hate it. It'll probably end up being a split that is just insufferable and a roster clogging move. Robert Tonyan, speaking of roster cloggers, I think
Bears will be Bears and just, pick up all the tight ends they can.
Take up all the tight ends, all the cast-offs from the Packers at this point. Robert Tonyan, Cole Kmet. I think this is an opportunity to go send a trade offer for Cole Kmet in Dynasty. Do you feel that way?
I agree.
Yeah, I'm not worried about Robert. No disrespect. He was buoyed almost entirely by touchdowns when he's played the last couple of seasons. And I've learned my lesson. I'm moving on from Big Bob. Wish you well, but
absolutely
also not. Let's talk about one other thing to wrap up the Lions kind of milieu here. So Jamal Williams leaves, which is such a bummer. I know they're a divisional rival for the Packers, so I should be happy that they lost such a great player, but I'm not, because Jamal Williams deserves to stick around with one team. But he goes to the Saints, which has been my preferred landing spot for a lot of running backs. I was actually hoping that Austin Eckler would end up being traded because he wants out so bad from the Chargers. I was hoping he would end up on the Saints because Alvin Kamara is going to be dealing with at least a 6-game suspension, if not more. Jamal Williams, though, could look like a smash dude for the first 6 games at least then of the season.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Don't they still have Mark Ingram on the team?
He may have also been a free agent, but I'm not positive.
I don't know. Regardless, I don't think it really matters that the corpse of Mark Ingram is on the team or not. Yeah, if and when Kamara is suspended, wheels up for Jamal Williams to start the season. And then as Kamara's getting closer to coming back, maybe try to trade him away, get as much value as you can, and hopefully sucker your league mates into that trade.
I like that. I also think that Jamal Williams might have had the most potential now as a free agent change outside of Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders still with all the volume, I get it. But Jamal Williams, I think, is secretly winner number 2 amongst running backs that moved. So I don't know. I'm pretty damn excited. I'm going to overdraft him. I already know. Especially if they show a lot of his interviews ahead of the time that I draft. Oh my God, it's going to be a round 1 pick. I won't be able to.
Just contain yourself.
Well, let's do a little bit more with running backs and a little bit of something else here. So Cowboys, we have to talk about it. They released your guy, Ezekiel Elliott. your man from last year.
Mhm.
He hasn't, at least as of this recording, has not been signed with another team yet. I know he will, and I do want to
Yes.
ask your opinion on that. But first, the Cowboys also added Brandin Cooks and Ronald Jones. Ronald Jones just got added today. Brandin Cooks. What are we doing with Brandin Cooks? CeeDee Lamb obviously is the number one still.
Yep. And Gallup is still there because he got that contract last offseason.
Yep.
So I guess Brandin Cooks is going to be the slot guy. I mean, it's another
Brandin Cooks
weapon.
has always done it like a Juju type of thing, though, where he can play in the slot and
Right.
outside.
Right. And I know that CD can do the same thing. So maybe it's one of those things. It's to have a couple guys that are interchangeable in that offense. They lost Dalton Schultz, so maybe it's to bring in another pass catcher for that offense and have like a true like 3 wide kind of West Coast style offense with Mike McCarthy still there. And then Ronald Jones, I mean, you need a backup player, so that's all that really is a depth move to have someone to back up Pollard now that Zeke is gone.
Yeah, behind Pollard, they had Malik Davis and Rico Dowdle, who's like a specialist
nothing.
winger. They
Whole lot of
needed
nobodies.
somebody. I will say, I think they added Ronald Jones for a different reason. I think this is like a LaShawn McCoy signing, like from a couple of years ago. Remember when LaShawn McCoy was on the 2 Super Bowl winning teams in back-to-back seasons? He got shipped off to it was the Bucks and then the Chiefs, I think, is the order of events with that. And he didn't play either of the times, but he was like their good luck charm. And then he just kept finding himself on new teams after that because he's a 2-time. Same deal with Ronald Jones, back-to-back Super Bowl champion. Barely played in either of the seasons, but I think he's a good luck charm here.
Well, that wouldn't surprise me if McCarthy thought that. Or let's be
Jerry.
honest, Jerry Jones. Yeah. That's probably more likely. Let's be honest.
Yeah. I do think Ronald Jones will be a touchdown vulture, unfortunately, but somebody was going to anyway, so it doesn't matter. But Zeke. Okay, so Zeke is gone. There's a good handful of teams that could still use somebody like him. Do you have like any preferred teams for fantasy for him to land on?
No, I'm out on Zeke for fantasy. I've totally changed my mind, and it's just he had the opportunity this last season and really disappointed. He just hasn't looked the same for the last couple years. And, supposedly this year he was in the best shape of his life. And it just, you just haven't seen it. And and when he has played, it looks like he's lost a step. Like it looks like he's hit that age cliff. And I mean, he's got a shit ton of wear and tear on him because Dallas just, ran him to the ground. So he'll probably have the flash games here and there with whatever teams he signs with, but I don't think he's going to be someone you can count on a consistent basis.
Yeah. I'm dreading that like the Ravens will pick him up or something. And
that'd be a very Ravens move.
It would be a total Ravens move. That's so Ravens. And they would have now one guy who everybody's begging to be fantasy relevant again in J.K. Dobbins, of just like, give me a full season of J.K. Dobbins, but the Ravens will never let us have a full season of J.K. Dobbins. Even with Gus Edwards there, I could still see them doing this.
Oh, absolutely.
So, I don't know that there's a great spot for him ultimately that would make me feel good.
No.
Arizona?
Maybe.
Yeah, because James Conner's there. Boy,
I
hate it.
I mean,
hate it all.
They don't have a lot of depth in Arizona, so maybe.
You're right. He might go to Tampa Bay. Leonard Fournette got cut.
Yeah.
He could go there. So sorry to all the Rashad Boyd
Miami loves to hoard running back, so maybe they pick him up.
Well, maybe, but we should talk about them actually next. I would say like parting shot for Zeke in Dynasty, literally any interest to trade for him in Dynasty right now. Anything,
no.
Even if somebody said, hey, give me a 2nd round pick, I'll give you Zeke in a 3rd.
No, I'd rather keep the 2nd.
Right.
If it's Zeke for a 3rd or maybe like 2/3. I don't even know if I'd do 2/3.
You would even pay to what
Maybe.
a drastic change.
I know.
Of heart.
I am soured so much.
Time wounds all heals. I think
That's
is how
right.
that expression goes. Let's talk about the Dolphins real quick. A lot of nothing moves this week, but it compounds on what we talked about last week. So they added Braxton Berrios. I don't care. Sorry, Braxton. Sure, you're a super cool guy. But they re-signed Myles Gaskin. They've now brought back every piece of their backfield from last year. They've locked up everybody. So there isn't room. Like, even if they wanted to sign Zeke, there's no room for anybody now
they could
in
cut
Miami.
people. It'd be fine. They could
Would
cut.
Would they cut Raheem Mostert? Do you think he would be on the chopping block?
I don't know.
It's just like fucking last year. And we have to, I just never want to hear anybody say to me in person or over the internet, I want that free agent to go to Miami. That's going to be amazing when they land in Miami, and then they're going to have the best fantasy season of all time. It's not going to happen. Miami is not a running back destination.
No.
They also used Tua Tagovailoa's fifth-year option, which I think was kind of expected, but it's more just health stuff that I think everybody's scared of now.
So I think, though, that is a positive sign, though, for his health, that they feel like he's recovered or recovering and going to be healthy, and they're not really worried necessarily about the concussion thing. So, I mean, that I take that as a good sign in that aspect.
Yeah. And we talked about last week, they signed Mike White as a backup, which is a wonderful insurance policy. So not a lot to talk about with the Dolphins.
Yep.
The Texans, on the other hand, made a couple of, in terms of the second wave of free agency, like you said, these are substantial moves. They add Devin Singletary to the backfield. The Dameon Pierce fans crumble to the ground with Devin Singletary. And they add Dalton Schultz, who was the biggest name tight end remaining out there. I had put him over Mike Gesicki, even personally.
Yeah. Oh, same.
Because more the all-around traditional tight end guy. 1-year deal, by the way, with the Texans. That has to sting. Let's talk about
maybe that's all he wanted was a 1-year deal. Just like, I'm not getting the interest I want this year. Give me a 1-year deal. I'll try the market again next year.
And I ain't going to get locked into a contract with the Texans like Brandin Cooks did and have to fight my way out.
That's right.
Yeah, that's actually fair. With Devin Singletary, do we think? I don't know. I don't view him as a real big threat to Dameon Pierce. I think Dameon Pierce is a much better running back. He never caught passes anyways. So Devin Singletary can be that guy. That's fine. Yeah, I think Pierce is pretty much insulated.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know if Sexy Rexy is still on the squad, but maybe this is a replacement for him because he is getting a little long in the tooth. So this is just kind of a
little.
Okay.
That man was around when the Magna Carta was written, I think. I read that on his Wikipedia. I don't know if that's true. Dalton Schultz, though. So in terms of tight ends, oh, God. In terms of tight end landing spots, Texans is fine because there was nobody there.
Right.
So, I don't know. Are we kind of excited about the volume here?
I think there's potential to have good volume. I mean, their wide receiver core is young and unproven. You got Nico Collins and John Mechie should be returning this year. I'm missing one other youngish guy they have on their team, but really they don't have like a veteran presence as far as wide receivers go right now. So, that's right. They did. That's right. That was last week's show. So, I mean, this is another weapon. How much will he get used? I don't know. Like, the Texans have never really funneled targets to the tight end, but is that due to the fact they haven't had a good tight end on their team, or is that just more how the offense is run? I don't know.
Right. And people who like to say, bad or new quarterbacks use tight ends as security blankets, the Texans have been a case study for that the last 2 years because they've had bad and inexperienced quarterbacks on the team, and those tight ends didn't do much of anything. So I think if somebody views this as a step up or a lateral move for Dalton Schultz, I'm trading my shares of Dalton Schultz to that person because I don't want to change. There's too many tight ends who come and go. They fade away. They have a good year or two, and then they're never heard from again. He could be that guy.
Yep. He's still got the name recognition.
Yeah.
Get what you can for him. I agree.
Yeah. I'm going to send some offers before everybody listens to this show. Bills add Damian Harris, who we're talking about from the Patriots, and Deontay Hardy, who people are very excited about, by the way. I don't know much about him, but I'm going to have to do some research, I guess. They release Isaiah McKenzie. A little bit of a surprise, I think. Damian Harris. I still don't care about running backs in this offense. Do you value Damian Harris? Okay.
Nope, I don't.
I still don't think that this is good for James Cook either, by the way. People are celebrating it as a win for James Cook. I don't view it that way either. I think Damian Harris is a better running back than Devin Singletary. I also don't think it matters. I also think you're going to be frustrated with the other version of the Patriots essentially in this backfield. So I'm out. Again, Deontay Hardy, any strong thoughts on that young lad?
He's young. From what I'm just trying to Google here real quick, he's a small guy. He's 5'6", 170 pounds, according to Pro Football Reference. Ooh, so he might be just that. He might be just that speedster, stretch the field kind of guy, just to open things up maybe for Diggs and Gabe Davis, and it'd be more of a role player. But
don't let anybody tackle him. He's
I don't know. I don't know that he's going to be fantasy relevant. Probably great for the Bills themselves, but yeah, not great for fantasy.
Fair. Let's move to the Raiders here. They lost Darren Waller. He went away in free agency. They replace him, quote unquote, as Adam Schefter, I believe, said, with OJ Howard. OJ Howard hasn't been fantasy relevant almost ever, although people have been demanding it because of his athletic profile. It's not happened that way.
Same class as Njoku. We're still waiting for those major breakouts to happen.
So this does seem like they're probably going to move on from Foster Moreau then, who is also a free agent. So we're going to have to wait for the landing spot, I think, for Foster Moreau, which is probably going to be ugly and gross. OJ Howard, I don't want any piece of. I'd rather take whoever the bigger bodied receiver is. I'd rather take Jacoby Myers, who's now on the team.
Or give me Hunter Renfrow.
Yeah.
Give me the slot guy.
Also added Cam Sims. I only note this because now, finally, we know the difference between the Simses that were on the Commanders for the last 3 years. Well, now this one's on the Raiders. So by default, this is the Sims that is Raiders Sims. And now there is still the Sims, Steven Sims, who is the Commander Sims. So I think we have it nice and isolated into these little boxes. We can leave that mystery behind us.
Here's hoping.
I'm kind of hoping he doesn't become super fantasy relevant because I don't want to have to realign my thoughts and still probably call him Steven Sims at some point.
Yeah, I honestly don't see it happening, but you never know. It could happen.
Yeah. A lot of receivers now on the Raiders. A lot of depth, I'll say, on the Raiders. Giants, speaking of depth and wide receivers, all the receivers are now on the Giants. If you're looking for a receiver, if you've lost a receiver, they are now on the Giants roster. You don't have to look any further. They add Paris Campbell. They add Jeff Smith, who is with the Jets. They re-sign Darius Slayton. That is with the news from last week of all of the other receivers who were there are back there. It's like the backfield of the Miami Dolphins. It's the same deal. Right.
Yeah, they've got a bunch of wide receiver 3s and no alpha wide receiver 1 on their team.
Which to me says they added so many pieces, they might be mostly done. I'm sure they'll do something in the draft with a rookie wide receiver. But now it just feels like Darren Waller, step on up. You are back into my top 5 tight ends.
Yeah, and maybe hopeful for Wan'Dale Robinson. I mean, they spent good draft capital on him, so I have to imagine they're really going to give him a shot to be involved in this offense.
Was he a 3rd-round pick, or was he a 2nd-round pick?
I want to say 2nd.
Okay. Yeah, that's enough draft capital. It just Paris Campbell signing kind of freaked me out a little bit for him. And now it's still Sterling Shepard. It's still, again, these other two. I'm not saying that Jeff Smith is a big, again, no offense to Jeff Smith, but no big like hindrance necessarily. It just doesn't feel like, I don't know. It doesn't feel like Wandale's time. You look shocked reading whatever you're reading. Was he a
no,
day 5 pick?
No, I'm just trying to find where he was actually drafted.
Gotcha. Either way, I guess I'm not super comfortable with Wandale Robinson. It feels like a Mecole Hardman situation of brewing with him just a little bit. Just give him time. He's just got to get some clearance. They have to shake loose some of these other wide receivers, and they're not doing it.
Yeah, it looks like he was picked in the 2nd round.
I mean, maybe there's hope.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of hope for him personally. So I'm staying away from all of the pass catchers here. I'm super targeted on Saquon Barkley and Darren Waller still, and the rest will sort itself out. Daniel Jones, though, you have all the guys from last year where you were the best you've ever been for fantasy. Throw some extra talent into the pool. Again, Paris Campbell, Darren Waller. Throw some extra guys in there that have more athleticism than what you had last year. You should be just as good or not better. So I'm still really in on Daniel Jones. Maybe
Absolutely
bumped up a notch.
Same here. I think this is what they're doing is adding a lot of good role players to support Daniel Jones. Maybe not great for fantasy, but the Giants don't care about fantasy. So, but I do like this for Daniel Jones. I mean, any more pass catchers, I think it's a good thing for him.
Let's move on to a trio of quarterbacks that I'm curious to gauge your thoughts on. This is clearly 2nd or 3rd wave quarterback situation we're talking about, but it's interesting. So the Bucs add Baker Mayfield to compete with Kyle Trask. So coming back to Mike Evans' value from early, if Baker Mayfield is the starter, I am in on Mike Evans. I am out on Chris Godwin. That's how I'm going to frame it. If it's Baker.
Yeah, I think that's very fair.
Okay. If Kyle Trask, then I don't know. I guess I'll be partially in on both, but not fully.
Yeah, I would think with Kyle Trask that both their values would be depressed. I think you'll probably still be a little depressed with Baker as the starting quarterback. I'm not talking about Tampa Bay fans being depressed. I just mean value for Godwin and
Could be both.
And yeah, it'll probably be both. But I think Baker would give them the better opportunity at this point. But it doesn't excite me a whole lot either.
There's parts of me. Well, this is just the best ball brain speaking. That's all it is. I was like, Baker Mayfield in the last round of best ball. You bet your ass I'm going to smack that. Time and time again, I'm going to smash that. Chase Edmonds also added. So I don't know. I kind of forgot Chase Edmonds went there. So maybe Zeke to the Tampa Bay Bucs doesn't make a lot of sense. Rookie White was already there going into his 2nd year. So now we've got him and Chase Edmonds. Edmonds got a little bit of a bad rap, I think, last season. He moved on from the Cardinals the year before. I think people, I don't know. I think he got a bad rap. I'm cautiously optimistic here.
Yeah, I think he's a good veteran presence for the team. He's had flash games. He's had stretches of seasons where he's done very well. So if he can stay healthy, I think he'll be a good contributor. Might be a good flex play, bye week fill-in type running back for you.
And if Kyle Trask is the starting quarterback, you would assume they will lean on the run a whole bunch again. So yeah, that flex week possibility turns into fringe RB2 on certain weeks possibility. So yeah, they released Leonard Fournette, like we mentioned earlier. Let's go to the Colts, who added Gardner Minshew. This is the most excited people have gotten on Twitter for a long time, since they found out Gardner Minshew exists, I think. Because now Matt Ryan got released. Everybody was expecting that. He gets to part ways and cash his check for this year, which is just chef's kiss. Matt Ryan, applause. But Gardner Minshew now looks like he could be the starter. at least for the first few weeks,
Mhm.
even if they draft a rookie.
Yep, I would assume he will play probably like half the season. And I'm going to assume that the Colts are going to draft one of these highly touted quarterbacks because they have that early pick. What are they picking? 3, I think. 3 or 4,
3 or 4,
something like
they
that.
might be 4.
They're pretty early. So I see them drafting one of these quarterbacks, and Minshew's that bridge guy to get them at least halfway through the season. If they're playing really well, say the team kind of rebounds, Jonathan Taylor comes back healthy, the offensive line is improved. Who knows? Maybe he could end up playing longer and letting the rookie, just gain that experience on the bench of, learning the offense and learning how to read defenses better, all that kind of behind the scenes stuff we don't think about. So yeah, I mean, Gardner could be a good just late round flyer in redraft this next year because he's going to start hot.
Yep.
He's going to start real good, and then maybe he'll have it continue. Maybe he'll be the surprise quarterback of this next season.
I don't think Gardner Minshew lasts for the entire season, but I don't think
so
you have
either.
to draft him to do that either.
No.
Like you said, he's going to be a late round guy, last round guy probably. Pick him up for the 5 to 8 games that he'll start for the Colts. Use him, drop him, try to trade him ahead of time before the younger guy comes in, whatever you want to do. But I'm interested in that as a process, as a strategy in redraft.
Mm-hmm.
I do like what that does for Michael Pittman as well. There's a little bit of like, oh, good. There's somebody who we've seen support a good wide receiver coming in, at least to start the season. Colts also add Isaiah McKenzie, who got cut from the Buffalo Bills. I don't know.
They had to replace Paris Campbell, so that's basically it.
This rotation of this level of wide receiver this offseason is giving me a migraine. I don't want any of it.
Yeah, it's not exciting at all.
Yeah, I'd rather take Alec Pierce in his second year than deal with Isaiah McKenzie, I think.
Yep.
Third quarterback here, the Commanders add Jacoby Brissett. So now we've got Sam Howell versus Jacoby Brissett. There's now multiple teams where this is the case, where you have the sturdy but capped upside of a vet with a second-year quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
You think Jacoby gets the start? You think Sam Howell gets the start?
I think it's probably Sam Howell's job to lose at this point because they're going to want to see what they've got in him. And Jacoby is a veteran guy that can help mentor him. But also, if he's playing poorly, Brissett can come in and probably win you some games. He's not the long-term solution, but he could be that guy to kind of kickstart the team and get a little excitement going if things start super poorly for them.
Yeah, he looked really good with the Browns in those first 11 or so games that he started for them. And I think more importantly, he made Amari Cooper look great for fantasy. So that's a lot of hope for Terry McLaurin if Jacoby Brissett does start. So for him, I don't know if anybody else there is as impacted. Donovan Peoples-Jones actually was good with the Browns too under Jacoby Brissett. So yeah, Jahan Dotson could be
a thing
too. It's okay. I think you're going to be okay. Commanders wide receivers. That's exciting. Real quick, just a couple to run through here. The Eagles add Marcus Mariota. He's a backup. Obviously. The Falcons add Mac Hollins, just another wide receiver that they won't throw to, so it doesn't really matter. They're just going to run the entire time. The Browns added Jordan Akins, who was with the Texans, who didn't really do much with the Texans. He goes to the Browns. Yeah, third
bunch
string,
of just depth pieces for these teams.
The Ravens re-signed Justice Hill. That's right. Justice Hill is still in the league. Also, this one to end us on some maybe real news. The Vikings re-signed Alexander Mattison. He's not going away. Dalvin Cook might be going away. He posted like a workout reel, essentially, and a highlight reel on Twitter, basically saying, come get me to teams. So Alexander Madison might be a top 10 running back if that happens.
If that happens, sure, that could be a thing. What teams have the cap space at this point? Well, at this point, plus
Falcons.
a need at running back to
Falcons.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean
both.
they love to run the ball, so
They love it. They can't get
So,
enough of it.
I suppose there's one. Anyone else though, Jake, that you think would be
Like
a
serious
good fit?
contenders for
Yeah,
him. I mean, if we're talking honestly, there is always a room because Jerick McKinnon is not technically on the Chiefs roster right now. The Chiefs could go out and try to make a crazy blockbuster for Dalvin Cook, and the world would crumble if that happens.
oh my God,
But-
Twitter would break.
I mean, rightfully so. I guess it depends too if people want injury insurance, but there's a lot of restructuring with contracts happening
Mhm.
recently in free agency. So maybe something could happen for these teams that I got an injured running back who's going to start off, and I don't know how good they're going to be. Looking at you, Breece Hall for the Jets, like I don't know. I guess there's certain teams. Again, the Ravens probably not so much, but they're always on the table, always on the table for a running back. So outside of them, no. If Eckler demands a trade from the Chargers, there's your swap out there.
Right. Yeah,
There's a few spots.
there is. It's just odd that he would post that at this point after free agency already started.
Indeed.
You would have thought maybe something like this would have came out a month ago, like heading into free agency, like basically putting out there like, hey, I want off this team, give me an offer, like come get me type deal before free agency really started. But
Yeah, something
I
happened
don't
there.
know.
Something
Yeah.
weird happened between him and the team. You mentioned that before, by the way, the Cardinals, you'd rather have Cook and pay up than take Zeke on, right?
Yeah. Oh,
At this point.
absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
So, I don't know. It's interesting. I'm monitoring Alexander Madison very closely, but if that happens, we saw it. He's fantastic when he's played in lieu of Dalvin Cook. So I'd be into him. And also, welcome into the chat, Toronto Dave. Better late than never. Are
That's
you
right.
right? You are right.
Always.
Absolutely right. All right. I think that's all the free agency news that is fit to print, as they said back in the day.
Okay. Well, we made it an hour. It's a good show.
Woo!
Can't believe we made it through all these free agent moves. I'll be honest, that was quite the list.
There's a lot. Some of them more relevant than others, but
Mhm.
we want to be comprehensive here.
That's right.
And we're not done. Let's be honest. There's still a gaggle of folks that are
There'll
hanging
be a
out there we'll
trickle.
have to
Yeah,
talk about.
absolutely. Probably nothing super fantasy relevant at this point, but you never know. Like I said, one of these trades could come through. We're still waiting for the finalization of the Aaron Rodgers trade. So obviously, when that news breaks, we'll be talking about that and the fantasy implications. So there'll still be a lot to talk about. We're only month and a half away from the draft here at this point.
Right.
So I mean, we're gonna have plenty of off-season stuff to keep us going here.
I'm excited. It's humming along. The offseason is becoming a real thing now. Free
Mhm.
agency, then the draft, and then OTAs. And then we get to see the most glorifying comments about every single player that
Mhm.
is active on a roster. It's going to be wonderful.
It sure is. Well, when we get to that point, I'm sure we'll have lots of thoughts on it. But until then, folks, go out, do the things we tell you to do every week. Give us a rate and review 5 stars. Subscribe to us on YouTube. You'll see us when we go live every week. Come join us in the chat. We love to have people in the chat, like our good friend Dave. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, give us more drunk trades. 'Tis the season to be making drunk trades as we're leading up to the rookie drafts here.
Big time.
Make some drunk trades for draft picks and shake things up with your rosters. And we want to hear about it. So do all that good stuff. As always, you need to find us on Twitter. You can find my co-host Jake at Jake Trowbridge. You can find me at FF Dusty Dog, or hit us up at the Drinking and Talking Twitter account at Drinking Fantasy. And until next week, folks, keep drinking and talking fantasy football.
Cheers, FFers.